Before Unicode, the world we lived in, it was a mess.
You had a set of codes that you would use for German. You had a set of codes you'd use for Japanese. You had a set of codes you'd use for Chinese. You couldn't really match them.
Ideally, if I were to write you, you wouldn't get a question mark, you wouldn't get a square box, you wouldn't get something unreadable. That's what Unicode is all about. Making the languages of the world work on all those smart devices. And often as part of writing systems, there are symbols. Emoji are new and rather different symbols.
Emoji started out in Japan. Cell phone carriers at that time were having problems because each implementation of emoji were different. So when one person would maybe send a heart to their girlfriend, the girlfriend would see some weird symbol. We decided, okay, we will incorporate these pictographic symbols into Unicode.
So now if I text you a lizard, what you see on your screen hopefully will be a lizard, something you understand to be a lizard, and look fairly much like a lizard.
With emoji, unlike established languages, we're evaluating something that's really being invented. We get hundreds of proposals, but we only encode 60 emoji a year.
I think he represents hip-hop, and he represents skateboarding, and he puts them together in a way that is a one of a kind.
Look at that shit.
Our general response about people who use crutches is the story that to use crutches is to be miserable, to use crutches is to be awkward, to use crutches is to be pitiable. And his performances re-script, re-narrate, retell every single one of those stories.
He's an agent provocateur. That's really the essence of his character to some extent. It's like, oh, you think so? I'll show you, you know?
He's brought so much to the world because he has shared and taught. Let's learn to question the assumptions that we bring and let people teach us about who they are.
What he's doing, I don't think people have caught up to that yet, man. And when they finally catch on, he's like on to something else. And I think that's the way great artists should be.
The right whale is an extraordinary creature. It's really one of the wonders of the living world. But if something in our management doesn't change, the direction of the population points to zero, and that's extinction.
The North Atlantic right whale is considered one of the most endangered species on the planet.
This would be the first large whale in modern history that would go extinct.
85% of the right whale population now bears scars that indicate entanglement injury. This was a big problem, and it's an urgent problem.
It's a tragedy that we're losing the right whales. It's emblematic of large-scale changes that are happening on the planet.
Human beings can exist without biodiversity, and this is maybe a harbinger of where we're going.
Lobstermen are stewards of the sea, and they don't want to entangle anything.
I sat here and listened to environmentalist after environmentalist tell me what a murderous individual I am.
As your governor, I will do everything I can to defend Maine's lobster industry in the face of this absurd federal overreach.
The challenge is to find ways for the fishing industry and the right whales to coexist in the same waters.
One of the problems is that fisheries are one of the main factors that are endangering protected species. You end up with one organisation deeply conflicted with its mission.
The school was just letting out, and children, the one that wasn't riding the school bus, that was walking. That's when I just passed by the school, and a little further down from the school, I seen my cousin and my nephew, one of my nephews, with 4 white boys standing on the side of the road. But what really got my attention was a couple of white fellas, they was watching. So I stopped. I told Harry, I said, something going on, so I backed up. I got out of the car. I said, well, what's the problem? What's wrong? And they was just about in tears. They want to fight us. I said, fight y'all, what they want to fight y'all. And Bunny Landry said, we don't want to fight them, we just wanted to know their name, So I told them, my name is Gary. And I touched him on his arm. They did him, just touch him, just talking. And that was it. And I told him, yo, come on, let's go. Get in the car.
He touched he touched one of the boys on the elbow, kind of, go on home. And
the father of one of the boys was within eyesight of this, and he reported that Duncan had slapped his son.
I don't know what time, early part of the night, I think it was my mama called. She said they got a warrant out for your arrest. Come back home. So I came on back home, and the next day, I turned myself in. And they had the charges on me, cruelty to a juvenile.
They claimed that by touching the white boy, he had committed a crime.
People talk about totalitarian regimes as being so regimented and so predictable, and that's the nature of their oppression. But in fact, it's the exact opposite. The arbitrary nature of the totalitarian regime's actions is what makes it so oppressive. You never know when you've crossed the line.
And I'm the only person of color in the room, and the only person who could look at the scattered sites that lay throughout the city and instantly recognize them as sites of racial segregation. Because what gets remembered is determined by who's in the room doing the remembering.
Betty Reed Soskin is the most amazing woman I've ever met in my life.
Oh, she is a national treasure.
History is what happens to us every day, that we're all making history.
She is a phenomenal woman, a walking history book.
It's probably the beginnings of this national park.
It's hard not to know about Betty. Betty's kind of a national figure.
There's very little to be nostalgic about, if you're not white, of the periods of 1942 to 1945.
I had heard several years ago, I think, about the the ranger in California who, is older than any other ranger and was incredibly articulate and told this incredible story.
That dramatic arc of my life from 20 to 15 years ago in no way is a sign of personal achievement.
She seems like someone's grandma or aunt or sister.
Wow, she's just an incredible woman with an amazing story.
Instead, it's a solid indication of how much social change occurred in this country over those intervening years.
Betty is a force of nature.
She's sort of like Betty Davis, Angela Davis, and Yoda all wrote into one.